I'd always heard that a Caterham was excellent on the track, but not so good as an everyday road car. So, this time on Road and Race, I drive the 270S. This is the Caterham 270S. The 270 part refers roughly to the car's power to weight ratio. 135 horsepower from the 1.6 litre Ford Sigma engine in a car weighing just over half a tonne. Top speed is 122 miles an hour and a 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. As standard, you get a 5-speed gearbox, 14-inch alloy wheels and discs front and back. Suspension wise, it's coil springs and Bilstein dampers at the front and DD-on semi-independent setup at the rear. The S part in the 270S refers to the optional comfort pack that includes a heater, leather seats, hood and side screens and a fully carpeted interior. This particular example also has a few optional extras such as limited slip diff, lowered floor for extra room, and some signature edition flourishes such as painted headlight bowls and seat embroidery. You also get a beautifully machined key.
So I've been driving this car for 4 days, about 160 miles, and it's pretty obvious, but it's safe to say this isn't a town car. This car just has the standard suspension, which is the softest suspension, and even that is bone-shakingly hard. And don't hit a pothole whatever you do. That's the indicator sound, it's very loud. Apparently it's an EU regulation, but it gets very annoying very quickly. Caterham say that it is easy to disconnect the buzzer sound for that though. It's a very cramped cabin, and especially on motorway journeys or long journeys, your feet get tired quickly, there's nowhere to rest your feet, and so it just begins to ache. There's no stereo in the car, and there's not even an option to fit a stereo from Caterham. But I understand why, because the car is so loud, especially on a motorway, there's no way you could possibly even hear it. This car is raw. There's no assistance, there's no power steering, there's no power brakes, everything's heavy. You don't even get a glove compartment in here. I mean, there's no cubby holes, there's nowhere to store anything. I mean, my keys are just rattling around.
There is a fair amount of space at the back, although get used to undoing and doing up a lot of poppers.
The heater is an optional extra, and that has 2 settings, off and baking hot. To be honest, I found this car extremely challenging when I first got in it. The throttle is extremely sensitive, the clutch is really high, and you have to push the brakes with pretty much all your might just to stop the thing. Couple that with the cramped cabin, uncomfortable ride, the noise. It made for an interesting morning, let's say. This is not a car suited to heavy traffic, and it's so loud and so uncomfortable on the motorway. It really is a torturous experience.
But take the 270S to your favourite disused airfield and everything changes.
So what's this car like on the track? It's amazing! All the hardships you put up with when you're on the road makes sense now. The uncomfortable ride, it's all worth it. The suspension is so flat, it gives you so much control, and you know exactly what the car's going to do, and you're just driving on the edge, and it kind of just gives you a little bit of slip, and you feel it, and you just adjust, and the engine, that was such a bugbear on the road, which drove me insane. It just makes sense now. The brakes may be unassisted, but they still work. And they work really well. Obviously there's no ABS, so you have to use cadence braking. But they certainly stop you really well. In the corners, this car's so much fun. Like, so much fun. Because, unlike a road car, this car is just so communicative of the limit. You're basically slightly sliding the car around every corner. It's so much fun. Yeah, and because you've got such a low suspension, such a hard suspension. It's just so much grip, and you can just throw this thing around like a go-kart. The small cabin makes sense now. You're held quite tightly. It gives you the ability to get on with the driving. You're not being thrown around. I would say though that you would get the optional racing harness. I think it would give you a little bit extra stability inside the car. The engine is glorious! It's like 1,000 angry wasps. I'd always heard that the Caterham was fun on the track, but I didn't think it'd be this much fun. It's insane! The difference between this and a road car, the difference between my M3 and this is night and day. There's no body roll, it's just absolute pure driving. And when it does start to slip away, you can feel it. And you just give a little bit of correction and it all just comes good. What makes this car so much fun, apart from the amazing suspension and control, is this gearbox. It's a really, really short throw. And it just always goes in gear. It's like the most chunky thing I've ever driven. I can't even think of an analogy. I'm just driving on the standard suspension, which is absolutely fine for the track. I wonder what the track suspension would be like. It's so low down in the car, you can see every apex. You can see where you got to get the car, see where you point it in, see it, and squirt out of the corners. That's into full. 90 miles an hour. Braking late. Throwing it in. Oh, the level of grip. This is insane. It's very easy to get into a rhythm, a flow with this car, and it's just such a joy. Going from corner to corner. It just all makes sense. This is seriously addictive. I do wonder what this car would be like in the wet, but here in the dry, in the sun, I don't think there's a much better driving experience. They're about to close the track now, but I'm going to try and squeeze in just one more lap. So let's talk about pricing then. The basic cost of a 270 is £21,500. The S-Pack that's in this car is a further £3,500. This car also has the limited slip diff, which is a £1,000 option. So in total, this car is about £26,000 as is.
Also factor in a further £2,500 if you don't want to self-build the car and have Caterham put it together for you.
Caterham do a cheaper model than this car, the 160, but that has half the power, about 80 horsepower. And Caterham do recommend that if you are going to track the car, that this car be the minimum you kind of look at. They only make 500 cars a year, so if you're looking to buy one, you're looking at 8 to 10 month wait. And if you can't splash out all the cash immediately, they do financing options.
Running costs for this car are low. As the car is so light and the wheels are so small, you get a high MPG and a low cost to replace the tyres.
I must say I've never had so many people come up and give me a thumbs up or say great car mate. I actually had one lady rush up to me, scream and give me a big hug over this car, which was a slightly more bizarre experience.
So what are my final thoughts on the 270S? Well, I can tell you, I want one. It doesn't make much sense as an everyday car, like it was never intended for that. If you can afford to have a dedicated car for weekend B-road blasts and track day outings, then I've not driven anything better. If you've enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing and clicking the like button, as it really helps me be able to make more shows. Click the video in the top right of your screen to watch the next episode in this series, or the one in the bottom right to watch from the start of this series. And as always, thank you for watching.